Greetings and salutations, everyone. My name is Andrew Kiorkof, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today, we're talking about our next entry for our 2020 Fantasy Football Player Profile Series. We're talking about the highly requested James Conner. I heard a lot of people in the comment section say that you guys wanted to hear me talk about James Conner going into the 2020 Fantasy Football season, and not by accident. I mean, James Conner is a very talented running back. Ever since he took over the job as the starting running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers in 2018, with Le'Veon Bell holding out, James Conner has not looked back, and nobody else has either. I mean, the amount of productivity that he found in 2018 made us think, well, who needed Le'Veon Bell anyway, if anybody can fill in and accomplish this role. And what he's done over the last couple seasons, despite the injuries, is a huge highlight in terms of what you could potentially see as his ceiling going into 2020. So we'll talk about the pros and what he's done in his career and in terms of productivity and consistency, but we'll talk about the cons. Is it worth it at his current ADP? Are we potentially focusing and targeting him this upcoming season? We'll talk about all of that on today's video. Now, before we begin, let me remind all of you, I am taking suggestions down in the comment section. We're talking about James Conner today because many of you down in the comment section suggested him. So go down in the comment section, suggest another player you guys want to hear me talk about this upcoming off season. Outside of that, while you're down there, you can go to the description of the video, find information regarding Andrew Kiorkof's 2020 Fantasy Football Draft Guide, where you can find all the information there where I offer that, patreon.com/Andrew Kiorkof. That'll be down in the description. Outside of that, if you haven't subscribed, click the subscribe button, click the like button on today's video. And another reminder, this upcoming week is Strength of Schedule week. What does that mean? I'm going to be producing my videos for strength of schedule at the running back, wide receiver, quarterback, and tight end position this upcoming week. In terms of all the other pundits on the platform, I think I preach strength of schedule just about more than anybody. We talk about it on every single weekly ranking in terms of the regular season. We talk about it a lot during the off season. So again, if you're interested, make sure you get ready tomorrow. That's going to be dropped. I'm super excited about all the specific prospects and what I have found in terms of collecting data and breaking down strength of schedules for this upcoming season, who truly has the easiest schedule at the running back position and how that potentially increases their upcoming value. Regardless, let's go ahead and let's talk about James Conner, running back of the Pittsburgh Steelers, the guy that, prior to today I was wholly out on. And I thought to myself, I can't trust the guy that gets injured as much as he does. He almost reminds me, he's almost to the extent an AJ Green, where can I really trust him? If he gets injured as much as he does and he screws me more than he helps me, is that going to be something that I want on my team? And after looking at the statistics today and the narrative that I've built on screen, I truly think there's a great argument for potentially grabbing James Conner late in your draft, because a lot of other people are going to potentially avoid them or him. And boy, can he be a stat stuffer in terms of the total box score. Looking at what he did last season, sure, with an offense that was led by two bum quarterbacks, he was decent, averaging 4.0 yards per carry with 116 rushing attempts, had 464 rushing yards, leading to 4 rushing touchdowns, 38 total targets for 34 receptions, 251 receiving yards for 3 receiving touchdowns, and 128.5 fantasy points, finishing as the number 33 running back in fantasy. Now, sure, those numbers are fine. He only played 10 games this last season. And that being the case, a lot of people are kind of thinking James Conner, he's a wash. There's no point in trusting him. But there's a narrative that needs to be voiced, and I'm here to voice it. Prior to getting injured, from weeks 1 through 8, in the 7 games that James Conner played last season, he played 74.4% of the offensive snaps. In those 7 games, he averaged 15.73 fantasy points per game. He had 31 targets, leading to 29 receptions, and he was the number 9 overall running back in half PPR scoring formats with 2 bum quarterbacks under center. That in itself, ridiculous. And on top of it, when we looked at what he did after his injuries, it all went downhill. And that's what really hurts us. Because after he came back, he played 3 more games. And in those 3 games, he only averaged 6.13 fantasy points. And sure, his snap percentage decreased heavily. It led it to the 58% that he had at the end of the season. But before he got injured, he was a monster. He was a top 12 running back. He was what we anticipated. I mean, if you guys go back to 2019 and you look at my bold predictions, I had boldly said that James Conner was going to be the 2019 breakout running back and wholly potentially win fantasy leagues as the league MVP. I had said that. And do I doubt saying that? No, because I know what the potential of James Conner is. And though it didn't happen, and though he potentially screwed me in a couple leagues, I'm not going to hold it against him because injuries happen. And that in itself is something that we do not anticipate and do not potentially project, because we want everyone to be healthy. We want everyone to succeed in fantasy football. And though different circumstances hit them, we have to continue to, roll with the punches and keep moving forward. And when we did move forward, we found that there were other running backs in this backfield that at times can produce. There are guys like Jalen Samuels, Benny Snell, and then this upcoming season, Anthony McFarland Jr. that was just drafted, that are going to be sitting in the wings, waiting for James Conner to get hurt, waiting for their opportunity to strike. But if in fact James Conner can stay healthy, he is going to be given so much opportunity with Ben Roethlisberger coming back. We're going to potentially see once again a little bit of the early 2019 James Conner, or the majority of the 2018 season James Conner, which was a guy that was unstoppable, and in terms of fantasy production was a top 12 guy, top 5 guy at times. And let's just go ahead and kind of go into these stats. I mean, looking at what he did in 2018, as you can see on screen, he had 973 rushing yards, which was on 215 total rushing attempts, a 4.5 yard per carry average. On top of it, 12 rushing touchdowns, 71 targets, 55 receptions for 497 receiving yards and 1 receiving touchdown. Again, like I mentioned, he picked up where Le'Veon Bell left off and absolutely made it look like they didn't have a hole in terms of their number 3 receiving option. That all led to 252.5 fantasy points. And when prior to getting injured, when he was the weeks 1 through 13 running back, and we added nothing else, he was the number 5 overall running back prior to his injury in fantasy football in 2018. I mean, it's unbelievable to see the kind of productivity that he had. But the opportunity, that was the real deal. I mean, the fact that you can feed this guy the ball, 215 plus, 55. I mean, that in itself, 270 total touches in that time frame. That in itself is beautiful. That's a workhorse running back. We want workhorse running backs. We want workhorse running backs that is going to be fed the ball potentially 20 plus times. But in the times that James Conner in his career has been given the ball 18 plus times a game, he's averaged incredible numbers. In 2019, he had 3 games in which he touched the ball 18 plus times. In those games, 24.13 fantasy point per game average, half PPR. Imagine full, because there's a couple games this past season, 8 receptions in a singular game. Unbelievable. In 2018, he had 7 contests of 18 plus touches, leading to a 26.5 fantasy point per game average. That in itself, incredible as well. James Conner has produced. He has a ceiling. We know what it is. But can we meet that ceiling? That is going to be the big difference maker this upcoming season. They've gone ahead. They've improved their offensive line. You bring in Stefan Wisniewski, the left guard from the Kansas City Chiefs. You bring him in. You improve your left guard position because Ramon Foster retires. You go ahead and you improve on your fullback position. You bring in Derek Watt, another Watt brother, formerly of the Los Angeles Chargers. You bring in a great fullback so you can run a little bit of I formation here and there. You have a better pass blocker, so maybe James Conner doesn't have to pass block and doesn't have to get injured. You still have, in my opinion, this is a top 10 offensive line in its current construction with Villanueva, Wisniewski, Pouncey, DeCastro, and I don't even care who their right tackle is. It really does not matter at this current juncture. Going into this upcoming season, it's going to be a matter of, can James Conner stay healthy? Because the statistics are there. Looking at just what he did last season in terms of elusiveness, he avoided 14 tackles on the ground in his opportunities, sure, but 19 through the air. 19 avoided tackles on passing plays. That in itself, beautiful. 16 rushes of 10 plus yards. Great. He has the burst away ability. And even with 2 bum quarterbacks, defenses stacking the box, he still averaged 4 yards per carry last season. I truly think James Conner, at his current ADP, it's tough to say. I do hesitate at this moment in time because James Conner can be a top 12 back. We know it. We've seen it. It's definitely a possibility. But is he worth drafting a guy that might only play 10 games, that might only produce 8 total productive weeks for you, might not be there for the fantasy playoffs? Is it worth having that guy as your running back 3 with the potential upside? Because again, I could take a Raheem Mostert or a Mark Ingram as my RB3 and be perfectly fine in the later rounds, in which James Conner is currently being drafted, or maybe even a Devin Singletary. I could take those kind of guys, or I could take the risk on James Conner. And sure, everybody has the same chances of getting injured or having a crazy injury that stunts your career and really hurts you in the long run. But in terms of what James Conner's done, I think that the argument can be made that there is a chance, and there are going to be leagues that I take the chance on James Conner. But yes, I do play in 15 leagues every year, and it gives me more opportunity to take risks. But if you play in a singular one league per year, it is harder for me to 100% suggest him as an option. You're going to have to take the information that I've kind of presented today and take it upon yourself to weigh the options and think for yourself, is it worth the potential risk/reward? Because again, the reward, as we've seen, is there. With Ben Roethlisberger coming back with an improved offensive line, with a team that wants to be a hard-nosed football team, the reward is going to be there. But how long will it be there for? Is James Conner potentially going to stay healthy for the whole season? Is he worth investing in? I think he is. I think it's tough to say just exactly when he should be drafted. If I can get James Conner in the 6th, I am dancing. But if it's in the 5th, if it's in the 4th, I mean, it becomes a very, very, 4th, not even a shot. But in the 5th, it becomes a difficult question, and it really matters on what's available, who's on my roster already, and am I willing to take the risk in the 5th round? Again, hopefully this kind of helps you guys out, gives you a little bit of a perspective from my thought process. Again, I hesitate heavily on James Conner, which is typically why I hesitated heavily on making this video, because he is a prospect that I love. I love his story. I love his productivity. I know what he's capable of, and I hope for his eventual success. But this is his final year of his contract, his rookie deal. He's got to prove himself, and I'm hoping he's coming out and he's going to, kick ass, take names, and dominate the National Football League the way that I know he can, as long as he stays healthy. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Let me know down below in the comment section what you guys think about James Conner. I know many of you asked me to make this video. Let me know what you guys think, potentially. I do think there is a very good chance that he either gets hurt for the whole season or dominates the season. That 50-50, I think I'm willing to take the risk. Regardless, thank you, everybody, for watching. Like today's video if you liked it. And until next time, what is it? Running back strength of schedule tomorrow. I'll see you guys. Peace.